Okay, so I think we can start now. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today for this product webinar. We are today 3 people here on the webinar showing you different aspects of the platform. We have Talmo Silva, our CTO. We have Dan Stelios, the lead data analyst in the US, and myself, Anna Walter, product manager at ClicData. At first, we're gonna look into a few logistics. I hope everyone can hear me and see us. You have a chat at your disposal. You can type any questions you have in the chats. It's a moderated chat. We're gonna answer throughout the presentation. And also questions will be picked up at the end. Of course, don't hesitate to ask any questions you have. The webinar is recorded. So if you miss something, you will always be able to come back on it later. We're gonna upload the recording on our YouTube channel in a few days. Okay. So this webinar is a product-focused webinar. So we're going to cover the release review of our last releases in 2023, showing you features that we have released, and then we're talking about the roadmap, so the future and upcoming releases, and then a section for Q&A, questions if you have. Yeah, as said, don't hesitate to ask any questions during the presentation as well. Okay, so we'll start with a review of Q1, Q2 of this year. We have 3 live demos for you. We are trying to make them short and sweet so that it doesn't take too much time from the rest of the presentation. We have a very packed agenda. We're going to show you reports, data flow, new nodes, the Excel add-in, and then we're going to talk about the other features that were developed. Okay, starting with reports, sorry. Okay, so what are reports? Reports is our new visualization module that is now available in beta since April. And what are reports is a different type of visualization than dashboards. These are actually multi-page documents, and they are fed by a data set, which is, and then paginated through that data set. The update of that report can be automated. Of course, each time you refresh your base data set, the report will refresh as well. And as with any other visualization or other modules in ClicData, they can be scheduled to be sent automatically by email in PDF format. I'm going to show you how it looks. It's going to be probably much clearer when I show what a report looks like. Okay, so I'm going to switch to sharing my screen. Let me know when you can see it, please. All good? Great. Okay, so this is a finished report. It's a PDF that I generated from a report I created in ClicData. So as you can see, it's a multi-page PDF. So we have 6 pages here. We have one front cover page, which we can see here on the screen, which is some images and some text. And then we have the actual report, which is over 4 pages of data. So it's showing data in a table format. We have here a car sales report, and it will show the quantity and sales from different car models in different countries and sold by different sales rep. So I hope this is big enough on your screen and you can see the breakdown. We have a summary here at the top, summary of the report, and then we have the actual data. So the summary is only shown in the very first page of the report, and then each page will actually show all the data that we have in the data set. So we have first Canada. In Canada, we have 2 sales reps. We have Brian Adams and Céline Dion, and for each of them, we can see how much they sold in cars. And we can also see we have some calculations here, like, for example, the percentage of the country total, and here, total for that section, for that Canada section, the percentage of the global sales. And as you can see, we paginate through all the data we have in data. We have France, we have Japan, and we have Spain and USA. And then at the end, we have a recap, which is a report footer, where we can see the global sales sold and the global total sales in dollars. And then at the end, a report end page. Okay, so that's what the report looks like. So now I'm going to show you quickly how this looks like in the editor in ClicData. So I'm switching to our account here. The report section is available through the visualization workspace here on the report. And the report which generated the PDF is this one, global sales. Okay, so this is not going to be a very extensive training session. We don't have time for that. We will do a dedicated webinar for reports in a couple of months. We are still working on developing new features and capabilities, so these are going to be shown in that next webinar. But I wanted to show you quickly how the logic works. So we are here in the editor of the report. From here, we can access the different elements of the report. So here we are at the first level, the report level, where we set things like, for example, data that we are using in that report. We can see it's called car sales for report grouped. And then we can see the grouping that is actually applied in report. So it's country and sales rep. So these are the different under groupings that we've seen before in the PDF. And then we can see here, we have sorted the car models in an alphabetical way so that it always shows the same car models first and then second, etc. Okay, so the front cover page, very simple. Just going to make it a bit smaller maybe so you can see it well. It's a few elements, the visual elements. For each of them, you can navigate, click them, and then change visibility and the colors, etc. We have a text box here, which you can see has a font styling, etc. On the left, we have all the different available items that can be used in the report. And then we have the content page. This is basically, let me just make that a bit bigger. This is basically where you build the whole report. We can find our country name here, which is a bit too big, I think. Let me just make that smaller. Here we go. So what we do here is that we use a dynamic field, right? We picked the country data column from the data set. And because we have, I think, 6 countries in the data set, it will paginate through all these countries. Yeah. So the result of this green bar is actually our country element here, right? And it's the same for all the under categories. If I go back to the editor, we can see here on the left, we have these different elements, right? We have the group header at the country level and then the sales rep, etc. That's because of the grouping I did in the very first report setting at the beginning. So basically, it's very different from dashboards, right? The reports are going to show data in a very structured way, in a tabular format. And as long as you have data in your data set, it will continue to generate pages. So what's important, I think, to remember with reports is the way you group data, and you want to show them on the report side. I'm going to stop here for this presentation. I want to make sure that we have time to go through everything. But as I said, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask us. We do have documentation as well on our help center. If you go to this section here, building a report, you will see how to navigate in the report editor and how to handle the different content pages. For the content page, we have broken that down into all these different sections of the report and how to handle them and how to style them. And then all the widgets that are available. There are different types of fields. You can do calculations or not. You can use visuals, etc. We have new features coming out in a couple of days. So next release is in 10 days, the 20th of June. And we have conditional formatting that's going to be available with this release in the report, so that you can actually highlight some rows maybe in your data. In this case, for example, we could highlight the best selling car by country in each of the sections. That's an idea. Okay, I'm just getting out of the report now. And I'm going to give the mic back to Dan, who's going to show us data flow.
Thank you, Anna.
Right, I need to
just want to talk.
Just a sec. I need to
Sure.
Stop sharing. Yeah, here you go. Sorry.
That's okay. Can everyone see the presentation okay? All right, great. So we want to talk about a couple of the new data flow nodes that we've added in the last several releases. The intent obviously is to go from what we currently had in merges and fusions and views, and to have those same capabilities within the data flow. Just kind of as a summary here, we're going from the old merge. Can you go back a step there? Thank you. Going from the old merge to what we now will call the table merge in Dataflow, which is the new node. That relates 2 or more tables using a join condition. The fusion, which is the ability to append multiple data sets of the same type together, will now be referred to as table fusion within Dataflow. And then within a view, we can update existing columns. So if you're trying to update a column in place, that will be the equivalent in Dataflow is called the node transform data. And then there are 2 new nodes, which are kind of similar to functionality that we had before, but you would have to use a calculated column. But the JSON value was kind of the old functionality, or JSON, any type of JSON parsing in a SQL statement would allow you to parse and split columns with JSON strings into rows or columns. We now provide you with 2 new nodes, JSON to column and JSON to row. So just for illustration purposes, we'll kind of walk through a couple of examples with a few of these, so you get a good feel for what it looks like within the data flow and some of the main features that are part of that as well. So I'm going to share my screen. And let me know if you can see my screen. All right. So within a data flow, we have a couple of different data flows that I built here just for brevity purposes and to make sure we get through all the content during our session. The first one I'd like to talk about is just the example of table merges and table fusions. They're listed under the input tables. So you see table merge and table fusion. These are the new nodes that we've released in the last 2 releases. Again, like the other nodes, you can drag and drop onto your palette to configure those nodes. And then if you highlight those nodes, once you highlight those, you'll see that you get on the right-hand side the designer options to be able to configure that node further. First, we'll talk about table merge. For table merge, if we were to drag and drop a new node onto our palette, we'll see here that we can rename. We can set a description here. We can also force the table name prefix. That just means that if you have matching, if you want to see the table name prefix on all of your columns, you can force that. Else it'll just force the table name prefix only on columns that have the same naming. To get to the designer, you would click on the little X here. And then we're going to add 2 tables to our palette. One is the customer table, and the other one is a sales table. So now that we have our 2 tables, we'll hit select. You'll note here that we can drag our tables around just as we have before. Over here on the right, you can see that the table properties for each, as I highlight them, are listed on the right-hand side. If we want to be able to select all the rows or all the columns from a particular table, we can either click the double icon over here, or we can select it over here. I'm just going to select all sales and maybe address, customer name, customer ID, and customer last name. Now, to be able to join these 2 tables together, you'll notice that when we hover, you get the little circle here. If we drag that circle to the other table from sales to manager, and you'll notice that over here on the right, because we've highlighted the join line, we get the join editor and the join conditions. The join conditions, it noted when we joined it together that the customer ID was a common identifier between both of the tables. So it adjusted and tried to assign that join condition for us. We can change the join condition, again, similar to what we currently have in merges, by clicking on the Venn diagram at the top to switch between left join, right join, and full outer join, or an inner join. We can also add additional join conditions if we wanted to. This one doesn't particularly play well for that. So if I was joining the city to car model, we can make that happen. You'll notice that here it gives a little help so that you know that it's coming from the customer table webinar city. And then you can choose the different join conditions that you may want to use. Or you can even choose whether that join condition is from a column value or even a selected value within a car model. So a couple of additional options there that you can choose for your join, and that's how you would enable them. Once we're done configuring, we would save the table merge. And then if we want, just like the other nodes, we can preview to see what the result of that table merge is. Okay. Similar for table fusion. Again, if we highlight the node, we can see that there's the designer here where we can name, rename. We can reorder the order of our tables here. We can determine whether there's a match column option or whether we need to add additional columns where you can add the name of the table or the last update date of the table to your data set. So if we put name of table, that'll show in the data set as we process the data through the data pipeline. Again, to configure the table fusion node, I'm just going to use an existing example for brevity, but you'll get the editor here. You can add additional tables if you want, but we selected both the sales table from our Google Sales and from our SQL Sales table, and we added them to our palette. You'll notice here, if I check or uncheck, that disables or enables the options to further edit. We can then choose which columns we want to keep within our fusion. And then as we hover over each of the different items here, if there is something that we need to do, you'll notice that it's highlighted in red. We'll say that it's not found. Maybe we don't want to keep that column, so we'll just exclude that. And then you can choose the option of whether you're matching it with an existing column or setting it to nothing. These are the options that you have currently within the Fusion, and we've just migrated those options over to the table Fusion. Next one is the transform. The transform is similar to the transform that we have today, or the update node within a view today. One of the things that you'll notice here is that when we add the transform node to our palette, you get all the columns available to you that are coming from the source data set. To be able to add a transform, you would click on the little calculator icon, and then you can add your SQL statement here and validate that just as you would in any other transformation. We would save that, and then you can do the same if you want to also format the email. So you can do that all within one node step and apply that as opposed to creating multiple nodes to be able to handle those conditions. Next is the JSON nodes. We have a data set here that contains a JSON string. The JSON string is just a list of competing car brands ranked in order. So depending upon the row, it'll tell us the competing car brands. Maybe we want to see all the competing car brands, but we need to be able to show that in a row format. JSON to rows is going to take that JSON string and parse it out to multiple rows. When we add that node, we will choose what column we want, which is the JSON string. And then when we go to further configure that, we can determine we only have one item in the list here, but we're doing the item in the node that we want to see. And I've configured that currently with this one. And so you can change the type, the characters, and the size. And it tells you the JSON node of where it's coming from, and you can rename the node. When we preview that, you'll see that we get a row for each of the different items that are in that JSON string. So Honda and Ford for sale ID 1, and then multiple others for sale ID 2. Differently for JSON to columns, this is where we want to parse out and get the first JSON value that's within that column. Similar, we're going to choose that JSON string column, And then we're going to further configure to get the item from the node. The result is then we're only going to get the first item that is within that JSON string that will show us who the top competing car brand is. And I apologize, it's rendering a little slow for me there. And there we'll see it. And then it's showing the first value. So we see Honda is the first one in the JSON string here, Volkswagen here, and then Tesla for all the rest. That's all I have for data flow. I'll turn it over to Tomo to proceed with the next portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Dan. All right, everybody can hear me okay? Great. I hope the brightness of my window does not reflect on my head and blind everybody during this webinar, but if so, let me know and I'll close the window. It's my only option. I cannot get hair, so that's it. Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about the Excel add-in. So for those of you that don't know that what that is, it's basically an add-in to Excel available in Windows at this time. We're looking into making it available for Excel Web and Excel OS X, but at this time it's only available for Excel Windows. And it's a plugin that basically you load it into Excel and you can communicate directly with your data sets in ClicData. It's that simple. The beauty of it is that you can save your Excel, and tomorrow morning you go back, you open your Excel, you just hit a button, refresh, and the entire data set refreshes. So that's going to be my demo. I'm just going to quickly share my screen here. And if you can see my screen okay, good stuff. All right, so when you install the add-in, as they're called, you'll have a menu called ClicData somewhere in there at the top. And the first step is you have to come in here and click add, and basically add your domain for your ClicData account, give it a name, and that's it. In essence, it's that simple. Yep. I already have set up my accounts here, so I don't need that. You then go to connect, and you will ask you to pick the account if you have multiple accounts. If not, it will automatically just ask you for the username and password, which I need to just copy and paste here. A second, and connect. All right. So it looks like I'm connected, which is great news. Now, if you have single sign-on or if you have 2FA, you will also work with those. Now, I'll click the Get button, and basically I'm able to view all my data sets as I would view, basically in my folders, my personal folder, etc. So if I pick, for example, this data set here, I will then have the option to also select which columns I want to bring across. Maybe I don't need all of them. I can do a quick preview to see, to look at the data. And if I'm okay with it, the data will be now placed wherever my cursor is. The great thing is that, right here beside it, I can do the same thing and just get another data set. Let's just pick something else. Small, or I don't know what I have here. I have a lot of stuff here, unfortunately. All right, and I'm gonna pick that in, and I'm gonna get my data set right here. So as long as basically probably a very large data set, because it's still spitting. So you can put these in different sheets inside Excel. You can put them side by each. You can have multiple tables. And at any point in time, you just load your Excel back up again. I definitely think I picked like 50,000 or 100,000 rows or something. It's still loading somewhere. Don't know where. It is loading. And you can come back the next day and just select the table and just click, refresh. or you can just say refresh all, and all your data sets in all your sheets, wherever you place them, will be refreshed automatically. And if you then build downstream, sheets and calculated sheets, etc., and cells, it will all be refreshed automatically. So that's it for my Excel add-in. I had the easy one, it seems. So I'll just stop sharing and go back to the presentation here and move up to this. Over to you, Anna.
Cool. Thank you very much, Telmo and Dan. We're going to go through the other features that were developed in the last months. Connectors, dashboard side, API, parameters, and data management. So on the connector side, we released 11 connectors in the last months. So we have all of them here on the page. I'm not going to go through everything. The logos are there, etc. What is there to mention specifically? I think it's the whole Atlassian suite. We did have a Jira connector before, but we have split it out into 4 connectors. They do manage different things, each of them. And we also have Trello now, which we didn't used to have. And also the other one, maybe super important, is Azure Synapse. If you have databases in Azure Synapse, you can now query a database with that connector. And also Microsoft SharePoint, a very highly requested connector, which allows you to retrieve lists from your SharePoint. And of course, Amazon Seller Central, etc. If you do have a shop in Amazon, you can use that connector to fetch your orders and sales traffic, etc. In ClicData. We also worked on a lot of other connectors. Mainly, all of these connectors got new smart views or got enhanced in terms of performance or got new ways to pivot data, or we added new ways to authenticate to them. So they all got reworked a lot, and we continuously work on making them better. On the dashboard side, here I picked just a few examples of what we've been working on. So we have the date range picker, which now is can be where now we can select the start dates. So whether you need to have Monday or Sunday as a start date in your calendars, you can do it now in the date range picker, and also in the calendar drop-down widget as well. And also you can create custom periods in the date range picker, which is pretty cool. To have your own default ranges shown on the dashboards. The button got some love as well. You can now style the tooltip in many ways. And the time slider chart got new periods. So you can break down data down to seconds, I believe it is. So it's very small here on the screen, but you can actually go down to seconds, minutes, hours to display your and distribute your data. Charts also got new aggregation types, so you can now go down to the seconds on charts as well. So that's bar charts, pie charts, and line charts. Yes, thank you. And also the region map has a very cool new feature which is coming with the next release. You can now use the topo.json format for your custom maps. So these formats are smaller and more performant than the GeoJSON format. So that allows to render that type of map. As you can see here, it's the US zip code map, which has a lot of different shapes and areas, and which is pretty heavy on GeoJSON, and topo.json does a better job there. So you can use that starting next release. We also have a new library of dashboards templates to download. It's not available yet. It's going to be in 2 weeks as well. And you can download them from the Dashboard Explorer to use for your own data. And they cover multiple areas. So we have accounting, marketing, sales, retail that are ready in 2 weeks. And then we're going to release more sectors, so supply, healthcare, etc. And we're going to continuously improve them. So if you have any feedback, please do share. It's always good for us to hear about if you find these templates useful. Okay, the API got a new version late 2022. we are now covering with all the endpoints almost actually everything, all the objects that you can have in ClicData. So you can actually manage everything through the API, creating, updating, removing, getting informations from all these objects in ClicData. And the only thing which is not possible yet is editing dashboards through the API, but basically everything else can be done, triggering schedules, alerts, etc. We also have 2 formats of specification files, which you can use in your third-party application as a library for all the endpoints that are available in the API. We also developed a new parameter, which is the live link parameter. So basically, you can now use that to generate live links that will pass parameter. And that means that you can actually use them without having to create a user in ClicData. If you embed a dashboard in your application or in your pages, you can use these live link parameters to pass parameters to the dashboard and get rid of actually the user live link method. So it's just an alternate method of getting to integrate dashboards into your application. Okay, what else? Yeah, on the data management side, we have some option as well to empty tables, purge tables when you actually upload them. So that means that you load only the data that you're really going to use in the end, and that will speed up the loading process and also improve your optimize your storage, obviously. We have also other options to help you manage the data operations easier. You can do copies of only schema of data sets, so you don't have to copy full data sets before emptying them and then using them for new connections, for example. And you have also, yeah, so we also worked on the quick insights and on snapshots. Okay, so now let's go to the juicy stuff, the roadmap. So over to you, Thelma.
All right, well, thanks for that, Anna. Lots of awesome features in Q1 and Q2. A lot of back-end work has been in preparation for the stuff to come as well. So there's a lot in there that we can't, or necessarily we don't show because there's nothing to show. It's just laying the groundwork for a lot of the things that we're planning for not only the end of this year, but also for next year. On the roadmap, on the short roadmap to finish the year, the Q3 and Q4, we have a few items. So starting with data connectors, we're going to attempt to release 6 connectors. Amazon Vendor Central, which is slightly different than the Amazon Store connector that we have today, although it has a lot of similar views and data sets. Microsoft Azure Data Lake, Zoho CRM, Bamboo HR, which is an HR platform, and Workflow Max, which is part of the Xero product suite. Tweeter, we want to do some improvements to Tweeter. We want to add Tweeter ads, but at this point in time, the model that they're imposing is not really suitable for us. So we're not sure yet where it's going to lead and where it's going to end up. Basically, as long as they allow us to continue to connect to them at no cost or a reasonable cost, we will continue to support Tweeter and Tweeter ads. If they at some point in time choose to charge us for fees on behalf of our customers, we'll obviously have to rethink the model and see where it's going to take us from there. On the updates and improvements, there is improvements to QuickBooks, Salesforce. We're adding more intelligence around how Salesforce data comes into ClicData, and Zapier as well, which is not really a connector in this sense, but it's an ecosystem that we really want to take advantage of, and in essence, improve the way we work with Zapier. In the midst of all this, we're also refactoring everything. The screens, the UI is going to change substantially, and be a lot more friendly and in terms of and more responsive as well. by basically converting it into our new framework, which you have seen in many other areas of the application already. As we're talking about connectors, it would be a good time for us also to give you a bit of an idea where we stand in terms of the life cycle of the connectors. We have typically 5 levels. You know, the connector goes through a development phase, and we put that out in beta. At times, we give it to certain customers in advance, but most of the times we give it out in beta to understand if we're capturing all the functionality that we want to have from this connector, at least on a V1. If it is replacing an existing connector, we ensure that it must at least provide the same as the existing connector. We then put it into release mode, and at some point in time, if we need to deprecate it, either because maybe the source or the target system has changed APIs or is no longer providing that type of API, we may have to deprecate that connector and then go into inactive. During the deprecation mode or state, existing tables can continue to be refreshed, but no new additions of this connector will be allowed. And at the point in time where there's an inactive, then the refreshes themselves will cease to work. So we are aiming at having a nice overlap and giving everybody time to change connections. We're also looking at to ensure that when you change a connection, that you don't have to basically recreate everything. Now, we will do that as much as possible based on the capabilities of the new API. So sometimes it's not up to us. If the source system has removed certain columns that we cannot include in the new version, then obviously we're not going to be able to include those, but we'll try to make them always backward compatible as much as possible. Also, if we feel that a connector needs more time to be used, or if we find that during the beta we experience certain issues that maybe warrant extending the period, we will extend those 4 months and 6 month cycles to ensure that everybody has enough time to use the new connectors. On the data streams functionality, and as a reminder, what data stream is a way to push data out from ClicData, whether they've been data flow or transform data, what have you, is basically just to push data out to another system using the existing connections. So today we can already do data streams onto WebStream, so you can use it directly into other visualization tools if you want to, Excel, anything that can consume a URL web stream. We can also put things into Google Drive and Dropbox, FTP and SFTP. We're actually adding right now SQL Server, Postgre, MySQL, MariaDB, and Oracle as target systems. And we're also adding some more storage target systems, Box, S3, OneDrive, and Azure Storage. On the report side, as you saw from Anna, and as she mentioned, conditional formatting is coming just in a few weeks. And we're adding the concept of subtables and charts to the report sections. Subtables are basically the idea of within each group or section or detail that you can go and get data from another table, and again, in a report style, display that. That is useful if you think, for example, if you have a report on invoices, for example, and then you can actually include now an invoice detail subtable below if you'd like to. Charts, adding charts at different sections, and the parameterization of reports to be able to pass parameters to do certain filters and actually publish that automatically to different people is going to be worked on as well. We already have some of that functionality. We're going to make it a little bit more interesting for different use cases. On the dashboard side, we're going to add some new widgets, the histogram, which, by the way, we can do the histogram. It's not very nice because we're actually using, basically a column or a bar chart to do that. But an histogram will be added as specific widgets so that you have specific properties, box plot and Venn diagram. We are also going to be working on a few items, such as the data form, which is a widget that allows us to enter data on via the dashboard. We're going to add complex validation and dependencies. So, for example, having two drop-down fields there, and that when you select one, the bottom one is filtered with possible values based on the other, and validation as well based on different conditions. The scorecard widget will continue to have some additional development. Conditional formatting is coming on, and the new formula editor. The tree map widget requires a lot of quality improvements. We're working on that, so it's going to be quite a big transformation for that widget. And we're still working on the data table editor, which is like the data form widget, but in row format, like an Excel specific data entry format. Live docs. Now, you may, if you have attended some of the webinars, you may have heard me talk about live docs before, even if in passing. Well, it's becoming more and more reality. If you think about it, what we have today, we can export dashboards to PowerPoint. With reports, we can have a repeated section, a multi-page PDF. But when you export these things to PDF, or when you export the dashboard to PowerPoint or PDF, you are basically limited to how the document is constructed based on our design. So we've had a lot of feedback saying that, we would like to have our own templates, modify a PowerPoint, or if it's exporting to a Word document, or even exporting to an Excel, we'd like certain formats and headings and page breaks and things like that. Also, when exporting data, widgets from dashboards, we want a specific corporate identity format. So we need to basically start thinking about all these exports and make tailoring how the exports are done. So what we've done is actually we decided to take a different approach, which is, well, instead of us having features and you having to wait for the features, we actually get to upload your own document, whether it's a Word document, a PowerPoint, or an Excel. And wherever you want to put data, let's say that this is let's talk about PowerPoints. You have your own style, your own formats, your own colors. You can use all the goodness of Microsoft. But let's say you have a specific chart, and that chart, you need to reflect the data that is in ClicData. And what you do is you basically put in a formula or the name of a widget specifically, and we will process this, get the data, and embed it into your document. And we can do that with charts. We can do that with just simple text boxes in your PowerPoint or Word document. Or even images. You can actually replace images for graphics that PowerPoint does not have that we do. We can actually stamp the image onto the snapshot of the chart onto the image placeholder. What that allows us to do now is, if you have this template, let's call it a template, uploaded, you have your format defined, you just have to schedule it now, and we will send you the PowerPoint or Word document or Excel filled in with the live data, and sent to you by email or what have you, or to the people that need to receive it, with your own look and feel, with your own styling, and obviously with your own titles and so forth. So that is what Live Docs is, and this is what we're working on right now. On the data insights, this module has not yet been fully released. It's going to be very soon. The data insights is a two-sided thing. It's about providing an ad hoc, very quick way of analyzing data without creating a data flow or a view or a merge or fusion. But it's also about the metadata itself, knowing what type of data you have on that data set. So one of the things we're going to do is start showing you some statistics about each column, such as how many values, in addition to just simple things like what type of data is in there and the schema, but also, what's the lowest and highest value, what is the distribution, what's the variance, how many values are null or empty, etc. And this can help you, look at the quality of the data that you have on that data set, in addition to, just simply pivoting data, etc. So these two are going to be part of the same module in a sense, and they're, it's already being worked on, and it's going to be improved over the next 2 quarters as well. On the demo of data flow, you saw, some new nodes that we don't have actually in the current set of nodes that we have in view. One of them is the split the JSON to rows. But we now can do a lot more than we could before. Splitting column to text, something as simple as that. Now we can add that as a node. It's coming out very soon. Dan showed you how you can transform the data, but leaving the original data untouched. We're looking into actually updating the data in ClicData through the data flow. We have a node coming for deduplication of data, and one which has been requested by those trying to do more advanced stuff to actually execute Python code on the data set within the data flow. So we're going to be adding those new nodes over the next 2 quarters, as well as new features to the designer itself. One of the feedback that we got was the fact that if you're doing a very large data flow and you're previewing the very end node, you have to wait until the data flow runs through the entire thing, and that can be quite time consuming. So we're looking at ways where we can cache different things at different points to show you rapidly what the impact of that new changes to the node in the end. We're looking at reusable flow blocks, blocks of nodes that you'd like to reuse in other data flows or repeatable within the same data flow, and the ability to trigger nodes with alerts and annotations, drawing boxes around a group of nodes, putting a little text to say, these set of operations does this, this, and this, kind of it as a comment annotation, really, of your data flow. One of the things, and I can potentially show you, maybe I always like to risk and finish the webinar by trying to do ad hoc live demos impromptu, and this is where the entire team goes, oh no, here he goes again. But I will try to do that just for the fun of it. But we're starting with AI. Everybody talks about ChatGPT and everything else, and we've been thinking about it for a long time. I mean, some of you have asked for it, and we never were really sure of where we really want to use it and how. We're starting to get ideas now with the new UI in place. We start thinking, well, you could really use it here in this section. So the first one is in data flow filter node. This is really a beta that we're pushing out in 2 weeks. You'll have access to it. As I said, I'm going to just wing it and just try it just to see what happens. And let me know if you see my screen in just a second. Share. There we go. So this first feature is basically just the ability to assist people with writing formulas. Well, sometimes we just don't, for example, a filter query. We have a node here that goes into here, and we're going to start typing it. Again, well, we know the data. It has like city and country and product and quantity, but I really don't know that. So the idea is, can you just say if a product is, well, just all products that are notebooks and that are sold in countries starting with the letter C, and basically, the idea, if it works, is that, and it looks like it kind of worked quite nicely, is that it translates that into the formula or the equation, in this case, in the SQL for you. And we're going to add these little niceties throughout the application so that people that don't really know, that you have to put, the syntax and all this stuff, they can actually get to it much, much nicer. We tried it with a variety of things, and he knows where to put the brackets in the right place. It works in a variety of languages. I'm not going to show it to you in other languages, but it does work. So it actually will work in different languages as well. So that's kind of something that we're starting right now. And you'll see that little magic button in different places pop up. And we're going to monitor that and see where that takes us in terms of usage and in terms of cost, because this is something that we're actually using, Azure's natural language engine to actually get this stuff for us with different models. Not only do we do GPT models, but we do other ones as well, which have different capabilities and are less or more precise. More importantly, we're concerned that people are just going to use this to ask all kinds of different questions that have nothing to do with ClicData as well, which is fairly possible because it is a natural language or a large language model. So some ideas where we're thinking of going next. Data analysis. Obviously, this is a big one to say, why do I bother looking and building visualization if, AI can just tell me what the data looks like. So asking questions about your data, absolutely, right? There's some challenges with that, right? Challenges mainly is the fact that for us to send this down to these large-scale language models, we have to send data out to other potential regions of Azure. That's the number one. Second, there's a huge transfer. If you're trying to analyze 1 million rows, before we answer the question, we have to send the data to the ML to process it and then send the response back to you. Obviously, we don't want to do that. We can't do that. We shouldn't do that, and we will not do that, of course. But we are now thinking, how can we bring the ML algorithms closer to us so that your data sits where it sits right now in your data warehouse, and it attacks basically that database. So that's our challenge. This is on us. We want to do this for you, but we need to make sure that it is economically feasible and technically feasible. Another way that we're looking at it is on the data viz. And this one is potentially a lot more easy for us to tackle because we could train the model to use our editors, whether it's Dataflow or data viz. In fact, both of these next 2 points are very similar. We can train them to use our editor and our designer so that you don't have to drag and drop things. You can just ask, have a prompt to say, build me a chart with sales and month, and you will build that widget and place it on the dashboard for you. Job done. Same thing for the data flow. Now, let's see how far we can go and how complex of things you can build with it and tell it. But in essence, this is potentially one area where, again, we're going to add that little magic button to get you started and to get you, start training the models around our designers. I'm also open to other ideas. I know this is a big topic for everybody. A lot of media on this. Again, we're trying to tiptoe in because not only the risks, but also the economies of it, and as well as to make sure it's useful. We don't want to build, a prompt like a lot of the tools, the data viz tools I've built in the past. They've had these natural language processing features for years now, and they've never really panned out. Nobody really is using them. So we want to make sure that if we're going to build something, that is going to be built right and useful for everybody. So these are some of the things that we're working on, in addition to a lot of other stuff behind the scenes that probably will not see it, but hopefully you'll experience it in terms of performance, in terms of usability. You'll see some improvements there. And again, we're always open for suggestions. We're always open for you to open a support ticket on any feature you'd like to see that needs some love, some attention from us, we'll do our very best to get it done within as quickly as we can. Back to you, Anna.
Yes, thank you very much, Telmo, for all these cool previews. Okay, so we have now reached the end of our presentation. We have a few more minutes left. If you guys have questions, please shoot now. I think we have answered most of them during the presentation already. But if you have any more questions now is the time. And I just going back to the different questions. I'm wondering if there is something that we could maybe explain a bit better. There was a question about the reports. If there's a need for dashboards to create reports, but actually dashboards and reports are really different modules. So what you need to create a dashboard is data, and what you need to create a report is data as well. So you don't need to prep data specifically for reports, but you can if you want to filter, pre-filter, pre-group or something. Of course, that's something you can do. And reports can be based on any type of data. It can be your source data, it can be the output of a data flow or a custom table that you build manually, whatever you want. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. And okay, so we have no new questions, so I think we will wrap it up here. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And if you have any follow-up questions, of course, please reach out. We're always happy to hear feedback and questions, and you can reach out to the support team directly. For example, writing to support@clickdata.com, and it will reach us as well. Thank you very much. Bye.